All right, happy Saturday. I am setting up to share this video out with you guys a little bit early so I can get it out the way. I do have some one-on-one sessions scheduled, and then I also am excited to be able to attend a boot camp session with my mentor. So I'm kind of getting ahead of my week. I also have a busy work week, so why not push a video out now so that way you have time to review and study and see if any of these ideas fit your trade plans for the week? And if you have any questions, just make sure to leave it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like the video. If you find the video helpful, please do leave a like, a comment, share it out with your friends and family. And if you find the channel helpful, make sure to subscribe. Right, so we're going to go ahead and get into some charts. We do have Fed rate decisions coming upon us soon this month. I believe that's happening on the 17th. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And I'll share some of my ideas ahead of the rate cut decision. Now, my watch list is actually circled around some potential movers ahead of Fed rate decisions. Now, I won't cover all of them because I do have a nice little watch list. I'll probably share it in Discord so you can just save it and, see if it works for you. So let me go ahead and share out so that way we can look at some charts today. All right, so now I put this one on my radar after doing some research on what stocks can move. But then I also noticed this has been a stock that my girl Mandy has been calling out. I think she's been following it. I think Sean may have been following it too. So I'm again late to the party with this one, but I do see some potential moves that can play out on this one. Now, there's a few things that can happen. This could just be a very simple liquidity grab and they're about to pull back. So we'll want to see how they open up and if they'll come back and close this gap and validate some support around this area here at 138.63, that's what I'll be watching for a pullback. And even better if we can get them in this zone here before they make the next move, that'll put us pretty close to our 12 EMA. Um, there, there's a few things you see here, and I'll kind of go through each of them. One, we have my wolf trend moving average cloud. And so if we isolate this, this has become one of my favorite confirmations of the wolf chart. It just is a feature that we get to test out. But I mean, when you look at a stock that's trending outside of the cloud, just look at the move for this particular stock when it broke out the cloud. And when I say broke out the cloud, I mean it broke without touching, and it has not come back until just right here. So this was probably the pullback entry before this next pop. We'll have to see what we can get if we're not already in this trade. We don't want to chase, but it is worth the watch because as you can see, there is still a lot of opportunity to gap up on this ticker. So I say keep it on watch, see what happens for the week ahead of rate cut decisions, because when I did do some review, this one could move based on the Fed rate decision. And so that would be our make or break. Clean opportunity, just looking at it from the daily, if we were to get that breakout, we're well above our 200, we're well above our 12 EMA, and as I showed you, we're well above the wolf trend moving average cloud, which is acting as very solid support and resistance. You can see what happens when price was outside of that cloud and the pullback this particular stock got. And so it bounced around in the cloud, making lower highs, lower lows until it came down to support. And so I think we're getting a nice opportunity here if this does break out. But again, with this wick here through this order block that we just haven't tested yet, this could just be a liquidity grab. And so what we'll look for is a healthy pullback. And if we can get that, that'll be ideal. Doesn't mean that it can't just break out more. I just would be careful to not get faked into a fake breakout. Multiple time frames are giving solid confirmation of a chance to break out. We even have it to where price has gapped up above this 200. Even if you look at it from the 3 day with with the 200 weighted moving average, a pullback here would be a nice opportunity before it does make that next stretch up. And again, I think that if we get a good rate cut decision, we could see this one moving. So add this to your watch list. The ticker is LEN. I have a few guys on my watch list that I'm watching. So I had LEN. Let's see another one that I did want to keep on your radar. SWK is another that you can add to your watch list. I have this one on. I think I got this one from screening, and what we're looking at, this is just a 3 day, and as you can see with the 3 day, we have that opportunity to gap up into the 80s, possibly as high as $85. But the first challenge from the 3 day would be conquering that 200. But as I showed you on the last ticker, we are out of the cloud. So I'm just going to isolate the cloud because it's such a cool view when you just put it away and then you're looking at just the cloud for a moment. Look at what we're doing again. So we've been breaking out and trying to hold above this area right here at around $78. So being that we closed above $78, we got to see where price will take us next. And we do see that there's going to be some challenges once it squeezes up to this $80. So it's not a big move to the $80, but if it does break there, there's some opportunities for it to bounce in this range right here and then try to make a next attack up. But it's going to be some heavy resistance in this zone here. Still worth a watch, especially if you can get it on a pullback. I would keep this one on watch. It does have an aggressive move alert. ATR is at $2.38. Um, I don't see any crazy news on it. They do have earnings happening in October, so you might get a little something out of that one. So I had LEN, Builders First Source, BLDR is also on my list. Now, guys, if you are trading options, you're definitely going to want to check out whether or not the spreads on these options are crazy. If they are, it may make more sense to go with shares. Now, again, if we isolate this one, look at what we're doing. We're breaking out the cloud yet again. We've been having some small breaks and pop out, small break, pop out. Now what we want to see happen is this resistance at 151 break, but we did just gap out of the cloud, and we'll have to see if this time it can hold a steady climb outside of the cloud. Um, but with that, I'm getting a few layers. And if you're on the wolf chart, then you know what I'm talking about. And so it's worth watching. One, we're getting an arc formation here where we have the WTMA crossing. And what's interesting is it's crossing all around this cloud that follows the WTMA as well. So very interesting move here. As I'm learning the cloud and how to layer it into my trading strategies, I am watching some of the confirmation stack. And so this one, again, I think it does look good. It's above all clouds if I layer in my pro, and it's giving a break of structure after breaking equal highs. So I would say keep this one on watch. It even has a signal to where it could climb all the way up to the 170s. Now you're going to want to do a top-down analysis on this one to see if you're going to find any challenges. And look, as soon as I do that, I get a challenge right here at around 153 on the 4-hour chart. So you're going to want to keep seeing aggressive moves and price to try to push through this. But at the first test, there is a chance that we could see some reaction once we get closer to 152.97. So I guess 153. What I will say here is to make sure and add it to your watch list. Another that could potentially try to break out. It won't be a clean breakout. You look at it, it's been on a steady decline for quite some time. But maybe this will make sense for your portfolio, something to watch. It's been somewhere in the past, so that's also something to keep up. It once was a $200 stock. Let's see if that's their all-time high. So keep that one on watch. I have a few others again from the real estate sector to watch as we're trying to break out ahead of the Fed decision for rate cuts. Let's look at SoFi. So SoFi on the monthly chart is it has closed is so far it's holding above high of July, but it hasn't broken the high of August, which was set at $26.61. So you'll want to keep that on watch to see what SoFi is doing. Let's zoom in a little bit on it. We know that SoFi has been on a solid uptrend for some time now, so we'll zoom into our daily chart and see what we're getting. So on a daily chart, we're just getting a lot of consolidation happening here. So this is where we're just kind of bouncing around in this range, obviously at a high point. So we'll need to see if SoFi can start holding consistently above 25. We'll base it off of this candle 25.11 to see where the climb can go from there, and potentially testing the all-time high at 26.61. So SoFi is on watch again just because of the Fed rate decisions. I do have that one on my watch list. One of my favorites that I think I'm really just staring at is going to be UNH. And what I would love to see with UNH is a final opportunity to gap up. Remember, we still have this gap on the chart, and so we'll clear a few things so I can show you the gap. All right, so one, we broke out the cloud, and you can see from the move outside of the cloud with this candle closing out of the cloud, not touching, closing above my 12 EMA, we're getting an arc. This confirmations here is just crazy. And so the signals were there to get into UNH right here. And then you can look and see where once it broke out, the opportunity to either come back here and fill this gap before the next move up, or UNH can do another move where it does gap up and close this gap before giving us a pullback to test 326.55. So you can keep UNH on watch. Again, there is a nice opportunity. For right now, let's just see if they are going to pop out to just 326.55, and this could just be a potential liquidity grab before they then pull back. And again, this is still going to be an area where we need to watch to see if UNH will close the gap. So if you look at this zone here, we're sitting with a gap right here that has not been filled. So timing when that will happen, can't say when it will happen. I'm just saying to keep that on watch. Gap fills can play out, but timing when that can happen, we don't know. And then there's, again, still this gap here. We have to keep in mind if there was to be a pullback, it could be in this zone here. Oh, what's acting funny with me? So that's the story in UNH. I find it very interesting because I think we can do a few things. We can wake up to this 326.55 and then give the pullback, close the gap, bounce back up on the steady climb. That would also give us an opportunity to test back at this cloud and then make the move. So again, I would keep UNH on watch to see what their next play will be. I think again, we just have a opportunity to have a really solid push up, or we will see another decline where it pulls back. But a nice test of this 200, closing this gap would be really cool for us. We do have it above the 12 EMA and above the trend line here, but again, we're right in the order block, just looking at it from the daily. So you can do a top-down analysis on UNH to see what your thoughts are on this particular stock. I do like it, and I would love to see it close that gap. Lilly has been a great trade, up and down, honestly, if you've been following. And we are kind of one thing with Lilly is we were watching for this gap fill here. And so it's very exciting that we were able to catch the opportunity to trade when it did come and close this gap. So this is the gap that I've been watching on Eli Lilly for some time. I think it would have been, I may have covered it on the last video, but if you didn't catch that, you kind of missed a really nice opportunity when we did finally come back and close this gap. It was actually a really cool trade. And then so what we're doing now is we're kind of just fighting at this resistance, and you can kind of see how it plays out in this area here. So we're hitting some resistance at what I have right now is 75.02 on my chart. Um, I think that's what you should keep on watch is whether or not price can start holding above there. There is still an opportunity to come test the 200 if you zoom in, and there's still order block here. We do have some um, bullish signals here where we see buyers stepping in and pushing Eli Lilly up. But that did accomplish the closing the gap. And since they've closed the gap, they just haven't done anything else. I actually would keep it at like 740.19 as well as a watch because that's where we would have closed the gap and that's where they're going to have to battle and hold. So I've been saying that, from where we are after catching the gap up, Eli Lilly does have to hold 740 for sure, somewhere in that area, before we can start to see strong momentum and a push back up. So where we closed on Friday was 727.21. Very solid pullback. I can't say I'm mad at the pullback, to be honest, because where it positioned itself is at a retest after breaking out of the cloud. Again, just like UNH, I do see a potential that if we hold 12, if we start to validate that we broke out of the cloud, also had an anchor VWAP. I'm going to put that out. Um, then we do have that opportunity to break back up. And what we're looking for is some chances to test around 760 and around just throwing some rough numbers, 774, 775. Now, if we do not, then you have to look to see where we're pulling back to. And ideally, that would be 713 to 700 and maybe even 694. Some very bearish and bullish scenarios can play out here. The make or break will be whether Eli Lilly can begin to climb back up and hold at 740. So those opportunities where it gapped up were great, but we do want to see it hold. I do also find that Lilly does well with pre-market levels, so consider following their pre-market high and low as part of your guide, in addition to like marking your previous day high and low. And you can see the resistance right ahead on Lilly. If it did gap up, it would be somewhere around 750-ish that we would have some resistance. So again, keep them on watch. There's going to be some choppiness as we break 740 and get closer to 750. The cleanest trade would be if we ever catch them breaking out above 774.50 and then steady climb into that 800 test zone. They did get some news for FDA approval on one of their drugs. I think it was related to cancer, actually. All right, so we'll get off of this chart and move on to our next chart. So I covered UNH, I covered Eli Lilly, Upstart. So we had talked about Upstart, and I still do see opportunities in this chart. And so I'm going to keep them on my watch as to continue to follow. So, what you can do with Upstart is measure your previous day high and low going into next week as one of your signals. But I also wanted to pull back to the higher time frames and see what we're doing here. So you can see like where I have it marked right now is at 65.90. Let's just see if we zoom in a little bit what we have on Upstart. I'm going to revisit the trade plan that I put out and then make any necessary edits on it. But right now on the 2 week, we're at the 12 EMA. On the weekly, we're actually at the 12 and the 200 with price trying to break above. But we did get an arc which followed with these pullbacks here. A really nice signal would be if they broke this trend line here on the weekly chart too. But I think I would take it to a daily chart for right now and follow potentially if we can test around the 70s, like 70.50, a nice grab around 71.22, and then so forth. You see there is an order block that sits right here that price can come back to. It has tested it before during July. And so with them coming back and testing the 200, they may bounce around again at the 200. What you don't want to see happen is price starting to lose the 200 on a daily. If that starts to happen, it kind of invalidates the trade plan and changes direction until we can probably try to grab some liquidity down here and maybe even here. So with that being said, you're gonna just kind of watch this one to see if we can start breaking the range. I mean, the range kind of looks pretty clear to me, somewhere around 69, 75, something like that. Um, and 61. It's just kind of been bouncing in that box. And its first attempt to break out, it did pull back and fail. So we'll see once it breaks the back above 69. We'll put it 69.64. If that happens, then we'll see if they at this point can hold and where it can go from there. That would put us back trying to get above the WTMA and in this cloud, where if we peak the cloud, we'll hit this order block here. So I still think there's some opportunities for this one is to climb to the 80s. But we'll see how it plays out. Again, we have the Fed rate cut decision still ahead of us. Now, NVIDIA, I was already reviewing with someone during a coaching session, and I did find very interesting. I just think where NVIDIA is right now is a pretty interesting position, but they are sitting in some support. And, I always say if you just look at a chart and even at a blank canvas, you can have an idea of where price action is and what it's following when you look to the left. So historically, we can see just looking at NVIDIA that we've had this area here around this 164.07 as a zone of resistance that was broken after they played around with it here in these candles. And then we've just come back here in that area. And then we've come back again with this candle here, testing it. Now, I would say if NVIDIA does lose 164.07, there is a chance to squeeze down to 161. But I mean, where they are now, I find that to be some solid support. And even if you look at it from multiple time frames, see what I mean? Like we're at the 200 here. And the wolf chart has all these you see green and red is telling us this is where demand is. And you can see that the last time we were here, the wick on this candle was a clue. And here we are again, we're getting the same wick off of the 200 in an order block, a nice liquidity grab through this order block, and then they bounced at the closing. So if you caught NVIDIA maybe on the way up because you couldn't catch it down, you should have caught yourself a pretty solid um, trade there. Now, where they'll get choppy is as they get above 168.80, which is the price I feel like they need to start holding. They'll be choppy in this zone here. So the cleanest opportunity would be if they start to get above 172.50, somewhere around there. I'm giving it's actually 172.41. So if they can clear and start to hold above there, they'll probably come back to pop at least to 176. But again, just wanted to give a quick review. There's a few things here. It could just gap up, try to break above 168.80 and then chop around for a bit, or it's coming down. It's going to test 161 and come further down, possibly into this next order block that we have here. We'll look at the cues real quick. Obviously, I had all sorts of stuff happening with the cues. QQQ was a wonderful trade on Friday. If you were able to catch that rejection, um, they tried to fake you into a bullish trend because of that gap up at opening. Everyone saw that we were high um, pre-market, but it at the end of the day, all they did was a nice liquidity grab up and then that pullback. Now, when I seen that they were pulling back into this area here, I wanted to be out of the trade. So taking profit made sense, raising your stop loss made sense because then you can see from that wick, we had an immediate reaction. So they pulled back from that gap up to their 12 EMA. So they did not break this trend line, as you can see. If the candle here would have closed above this trend line, then you would have probably seen some opportunities where we could have tried to fight out here. We'll have to see how Monday's candle reacts because there could just be a chance that Monday's candle comes right back to test the lows here, and then we'll have to see what plays out from there. But for right now, um, price is respecting Thursday's high, which was 575.60, and we closed at 576.06. Breakout would be holding above 580.42, which was the fail. I have that, and I'll keep that on my chart. For now, this will be a wide range for QQQ to be in on Monday, so we could just end up with an inside candle, and we'll have to anticipate the next break. Now, again, this one will be affected by whatever comes out of the rate cut decisions. Let's look at Baba. Baba was another great trade for us. It even had a nice closing on Friday from the wick here. So if you were able to catch the pullback and wait for entry to reposition yourself in Baba, then that was given. And Baba still has an opportunity to get back to about 142. So I wouldn't rule this one out of your watch list, off your watch list. I would definitely keep it and watch to see if they can start holding above 135 and then start to make that steady climb up. But in my opinion, if they were above 134, which is what I wanted to see, 134.25, 134, then I like it. So I think Alibaba still has some opportunities to move up. It will be depending on where money is flowing. And so I've noticed that it's had some strong moves, and then obviously you see these candles here where it pulled back. I was caught in this gap down on a runner, but after that I was able to grab in this zone here and then actually add another here to catch the move up. So that helped me to average completely out of where I held a runner too long on Baba, in my opinion. But that was after some really great moves here. And I still see the picture where we get to this 142 zone. So looking at Baba to still be on my watch list. I did not cover Tesla, but let's go ahead and cover Tesla real quick as our final review. And then if there's tickers that you did not see covered but would love to see, just leave a comment. Let me know what you're interested in. I'd love to take a moment to cover that if I get in the comments. So Tesla has a lot going on. So let's take a look at what we see on Tesla. Tesla's been fighting this zone for a minute, and I tell you what, if they can break it, if they can break this zone, this order block here, um, what we want to see is above 367.71. We're basing it off of one, this test here, and this test here, 367.34. If you start to see that we can recover and hold price above that, then you see that we have a nice opportunity. We also have price holding above the WTMA, and we're starting to get that crossover. You also see that we're outside of the cloud, the WTMA cloud. And so if we just isolate that for a minute, you'll see exactly how we're flowing. However, what we want to see happen is a steady climb, kind of like what you see here. Um, and man, look at this one. When Tesla lost the cloud, look at the sell-off here. That was back in March when everything was pulling back. And so now a nice recovery. Even if you look to the left and you look at my support and resistance line, it has mattered here, here, and when we broke out here, that price range. So I'm going to keep 367.71 on my chart as what I target for a breakout for Tesla. Now, once we do that, you have to make sure that support does actually get confirmed there in order for us to make the next move up, which I mean, this zone here looks really good for Tesla. Might have a little bit of a challenge once they get to 377, but then from 377, there's still, again, a really solid opportunity to push to the 400s on Tesla. I'm not saying that will happen, but as you can see, we're stacking with buyers positioning themselves in Tesla, pushing it through. And so that force up could be what clears all of this choppiness here and finally gives us the breakout we need. So in my opinion, Tesla is a solid trade. Even if you took it to like the 15-minute chart and try to see what trade opportunities you can grab on Tesla, you can see that they are just, again, fighting resistance. And so even if you take a small trade on Tesla and they're able to clear around 357.53, they still have a $10 move in this zone here before they hit their next order block and resistance. And again, the move that we want to see happen is them clearing this zone. So again, 361.71, if you take it to a smaller time frame and you can catch Tesla holding above 357.50, 250, whatever you want to say here, then you can catch a nice opportunity, at least a $10 move on Tesla. So I'm going to stop here, stop sharing here and wrap things up. What I will say is there are a few opportunities that you want to watch. as we wait on the Fed rate cut decision. So I've taken some notes and I'm going to be following a few different sectors. One being real estate. I think that is one that could have a nice reaction to the rate cut decisions. I would say add VNQ, which is Vanguard Real Estate ETF, to your watch list, as well as add XLRE, another ETF that follows real estate, to your watch list. There are some home builders and housing development tickers that you can watch. One that we went over, which was LEN. We have DHI, BLDR. We also have TREX and MHA. Add those to your watch list. Do a little bit of homework on them, um, and see if you can find some that interest you. But yeah, I would keep real estate on watch lists, maybe even some small caps. I've added Evercore, ESAB, AAON, Yeti, Advanced Auto Parts, and Bluebird on my notes, and that was really working with Chat GPTI and Black Wolf to identify some strong opportunity moves that will be high quality stocks that could react nicely to the Fed rate cut decisions. So if you have any questions, again, leave comments. If you do find this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, share it out with your family and friends. And thanks again for watching. Bye.